Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to Podcast in the Park, the podcast for Deer Park Community City Schools. This is Director of Communications Jake Snyder here with you on Tuesday, January 9th, for the first episode of 2018 and episode 5 of our district-wide podcast. We hope everyone enjoyed a wonderful holiday break, and we are definitely ready to kick off 2018 here in the park. Joining me here, as always, is Deer Park Superintendent Jay Phillips. Later in today's show, we've got a few very special guests, as each member of the Deer Park Board of Education will join us for a few minutes. But first, Mr. Phillips, before we left for the break, we talked about some of the strategic planning set for 2018, and some more of those details have been worked out moving forward. So take us through some of those things that we have coming up.
Sure, Jake. And as we talked about in a previous podcast, the strategic planning is coming up, and I'm super excited about this. I really think it's going to give us great vision of where we need to go and how we're going to get there over the next 5 years. We actually have 2 open focus group meetings scheduled for February 13th. It's a Tuesday, and I invite any staff member, community member, parent, student that would like to attend to be a part of these sessions. We're actually going to run 2 of those meetings on the 13th, one in the afternoon and one in the evening, so that everybody can attend who would like to attend. The first meeting is going to be at 2 o'clock, and that's going to be held here in the Professional Development Center at the Howard Building. And the second meeting is actually going to be held that evening at 6 p.m. Both of those meetings probably will last no more than 2 hours. But we're doing 2 separate meetings, like I said, so we can accommodate anybody's schedule who would like to attend. So once again, Tuesday, February 13th, at the Howard Building in the PDC. The first open focus group starts at 2 o'clock, and the second open focus group starts at 6 p.m.
Well, thanks for that, Mr. Phillips. And now we're going to head over to our interviews with our Board of Education members. This month is Board of Education Appreciation Month, and here in Deer Park, we are very grateful to have these 5 community members who have dedicated time and effort into making Deer Park a wonderful place to get an education. Mr. Phillips, I had some time this week to talk with each of them, so let's take a listen. All right, and I'm joined now by Mr. Paul Godwin. And Mr. Godwin, you're heading into what's now your 16th year as a board member, a couple of stints that you had there, but 16 years now, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, well, and of course the Godwin name is kind of a staple here in the Deer Park community. How long have you been here for? And tell us a little bit about your roots in Deer Park.
Well, we moved to Deer Park in 1975, and during that time, my wife was an aide and a teacher in the district, taught 6th grade for any number of years, retired after 20 years of service. Both my daughters went through school here, and one of them is back teaching at the high school. So we've been here for a while, and it looks like we're going to stay for a while.
Well, that's great to hear. And now you said you told me you did a 13-year stint as a school board member, and now you're back, and this is your 3rd year in stint number 2. Tell us a little bit about why you got into this in the first place, and then what brought you back.
Well, I got involved in curriculum development prior to my first stint on the board. And I was involved with buildings and grounds at the same time. I've continued that's my area of expertise is buildings and grounds, and I continue to work with the district throughout my first stint as buildings and grounds chairman. And I thought that with the potential new building coming on, that it would be could provide some expertise for the district to help us through that process.
Well, we appreciate it, Mr. Godwin, and on behalf of all of us, we definitely want to say thank you for all the work that you've done for Deer Park Schools, and we're excited for this upcoming year.
We're excited too.
Well, now I'm with our newest board member, Dan Downey. And Mr. Downey, first of all, welcome to Deer Park Schools.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here with us. But first, before we get into your role as a school board member, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me how you got here into Deer Park, what you do, and just give me some background on you.
Well, thank you, Jake. I've been a resident of Dillonvale for the last 32 years, had 3 children now, 2 older children, and now a daughter that's in the 6th grade going through Amity. So I've always been around the Deer Park school system. Went to St. Xavier School myself. Been with my company Interfab for 39 years, 15 years as a Boilermaker, and the last 25 plus years as the Director of Purchasing. So this has been my life, Cincinnati and the Deer Park area, and it was just a really good time for me to get involved.
Well, and so now that you are involved, obviously we just swore you in at your first board meeting this past week. Tell me a little bit about what you're looking forward to, what you see, your vision of Deer Park moving forward.
Well, first of all, the reason I've gotten involved, again, is my wife, Diane, is a volunteer at Amity, works with the 3rd graders and special reading for the teachers there. My daughter, Lindsay, is a special ed teacher at Holmes, and then Kaylee at Amity, and they kind of reached out to me and said, hey Dan, why aren't you involved? And so my premise has been, I don't know what I don't know as far as being on the board,
sure,
but I'm willing to give it everything I've got, and really my platform is that I want to give availability to education to all students, and really underlining all, because there's a lot of special needs children in this district, and want to make sure that everybody gets a shot at getting a great education. I got to tell you, what I've seen from Deer Park so far has been phenomenal.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to you coming on, and thanks for joining us today. We'll see a bunch of you here moving forward, so thanks for stopping by with us.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
All right, well, next up here, we're joined by Deer Park Board President Peggy Bossy. And Ms. Bossy, before we get into a little bit about your stint on the board, the first thing that I'd like to do is just kind of take me through your life. I know that you were, a Deer Park student, and your kids also went to Deer Park, but just tell me a little bit about your upbringing and then your kids as well.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. I was actually a Deer Park grad, graduated in 1988. My parents actually grew up in Deer Park also, so we have all been here our entire life. So when I got married, we decided that we wanted to stay in Deer Park and raise our 3 children here. And actually, my youngest just graduated last year.
Excellent. Well, Mrs. Bossy, this is your 5th year now on the Board of Education, and you actually just successfully ran for a 2nd term, and that starts now here in 2018. But tell me a little bit about why you chose to join the Board of Education in the first place, and then now 4 years later have decided to run again, and just kind of what you're looking forward to in this upcoming year and this upcoming term for yourself.
I chose to run for the board because I've always been very passionate about education. When I graduated from Deer Park, I went to Northern Kentucky University and got my teaching degree. So I was a teacher in Mason, kind of retired from my teaching job when I had my 3 children. I came back to Deer Park as a volunteer once my kids started in the school system. I became a sub in the district, a long-term sub, and so just to me this was the next step that I just wanted to stay involved, and very passionate about education, very passionate about this community, and I just felt like it's important to give back and to do whatever you can to help your community grow. So that's what I decided to do. I'm really looking forward to this next term. I feel like we have so many positive things happening. There's still a long way to go, always room for growth and improvement. So just excited to be a part of this wonderful team of administrators and teaching staff, custodial staff, the bus drivers, food service. This district is just phenomenal. We just have a great group of people who are passionate about educating kids. And so just really looking forward to that, and obviously looking forward to the Amity project being complete and seeing the fruits of all that hard work and all the dedication of our community to make that happen.
Yeah, I know we're definitely all looking forward to the completion of that one and ready to kick things off next August. Well, that's all I've got for you today, Mrs. Bossy. Really appreciate you joining us, and thanks for all the hard work that you do as a board member and as a huge part of this community. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, now I'm joined by Chrishughster. Chris is in her first term as a board member, entering her second calendar year. And Miss Hughster, kind of take us through a little bit about yourself. I know you've been a part of this district for a very, very long time. So walk us through how you got here, how you became a board member, but even before that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I'm an honored, proud graduate of Deer Park High School. Greg and I raised 4 children here. I was a teacher here for 31 years in all 4 buildings. And now we even have grandchildren here, and I have children that work here. Deer Park is a school of excellence, and I'm very proud to be here.
Excellent. And so now you become a board member. You've been a teacher for 31 years. And you kind of told me a little bit before we got on the mics here that something that you wanted to do was cut out the middleman. So tell me a little bit about that and just talk your way through that.
Well, when I retired, I recognized that I wasn't finished with education. I'm proud and honored to be a part of this community, and therefore I kind of looked at it as the realization that when you're in the Board of Education, you work for the community. When I was a teacher, I had a principal in charge, and then I had a superintendent. But the bottom line, the community is who is in charge of this district, and that is one of the reasons why I chose to be part of this. I work for you. This community and district is committed to excellence in education. When you talk about excellence in education, you talk about the administration, the quality of the teachers you have, the maintenance. You talk about transportation, cafeteria, and the community. Together, we are committed to excellence in education. I work with a phenomenal board. We are committed to do what is right and to raise this district to the highest level of excellence that we can.
Well, thanks a bunch, Ms. Hughster, for joining us. We're glad to have you here. Very appreciative of everything that you do for this community. Thanks for joining us. And now I'm joined by Karen Calums. And Ms. Calums, first of all, thanks for joining us today. As we get into this, I just first of all want to ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got here, how you came to be a part of Deer Park's community, and then why you became a board member.
Okay, well, I grew up in Deer Park. I grew up on Matson Court. Went to Deer Park schools the majority of my life, and then I did do 4 years over at St. John's. Mm-hmm. Stayed here, moved away for a little bit, came back to the community because I missed the closeness, raised my kids here, and they all went to the Deer Park schools.
Very nice. And then, so a couple of years ago, you decide it's best to become a part of the Deer Park community, kind of get yourself involved and become a board member. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I was involved in the park board. I got involved first in the park board and then the business association, because I owned a Deer Park business here for a while. It was called Black Barn Primitives. And so we were just always involved in a lot of the community projects or teams throughout the area. So I was asked to join the school board and apply for it, and we ran, and I won. So.
Very good. And now finally, just kind of as we head into 2018, what are you looking forward to? What's coming up on your radar that really excites you about Deer Park?
Amity. I cannot wait to see the new improved Amity, the new building. Having one school instead of, the kids all spread out, I think it'll be much more like feeling of togetherness than this, this group goes to this school, this group goes to that school. It's just going to be more team Deer Park.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today and really appreciate all of the work that you do for Deer Park and Deer Park schools. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Finally, finally, to wrap things up this week, Mr. Phillips, obviously the winter season is officially upon us. Of course, everybody should know that yesterday we made the decision to cancel school because of that early morning ice. I'm wondering if you could take us through that process a little bit, just kind of what you're thinking about, what goes through your head in the days leading up to winter weather, and what ultimately makes that final decision whether to delay or cancel school.
Sure, Jake. I'd be glad to talk about that because, as everybody knows, winter weather is here. Last week, we ended the week with extremely cold temperatures, and then yesterday we had the ice that made it pretty tricky commute yesterday morning, and that's ultimately why we decided to cancel school yesterday. And that decision to cancel or delay school is not an easy decision, and it's not a decision that I make lightly, and it's not a decision that I make in isolation. It's something that impacts a lot of people, and I'm usually thinking about those things days ahead of time. I'm in constant communication with local superintendents. I'm in constant communication with our internal leadership team as well as our transportation director. If we ever feel that student safety is at jeopardy, we will delay or cancel as needed. And if we do choose to delay and cancel, hopefully everybody's been able to be notified in a timely manner, and it's something you'll be able to see it on all of our social media websites, Twitter, Facebook. We'll send out a district release. It'll be on all the local news stations as well as radio stations, and we try to get the word out as much as we can. You'll probably also received a phone call from me yesterday morning on 2 different occasions for the delay and then for the cancellation. Once again, we want to over-communicate that so that our families and our staff are aware of what's happening at all times.
And that's going to wrap things up for the January edition of Podcast in the Park. Thanks to everyone for listening to Episode 5. We'll be back in February with 10 minutes or so from myself, Mr. Phillips, and more special guests. From Jay Phillips and myself, thanks for joining us, and as always, go Wildcats!